and showing the impact. We also do a lot of work on institutional repositories, allowing different institutions to deposit their work and make it really noticeable, visible, and accessible. And today we actually have a panel of several people who are stakeholders in moving forward and promoting open access, open science. And we as librarians actually changing a little bit the culture, because even the image of librarians, it's not like a librarian with glasses and a bun sitting and shushing everyone. We change the role. We see librarians who are really moving forward the awareness about open science, librarians who are not only helping to find information, do citations, but people who are helping researchers to do research data management plans, who help them about making their research visible to the world, boosting their citations. So we do hope that today will probably summarize a lot of findings from this conference, but also bring you some interesting insights. The plan of our presentation today will be, we will have question and answers, but at the very end, we'll leave some time for your questions. So please listen, please prepare your questions, and don't hesitate to ask at the end. Right now, I would like to present our speakers. Oops, I know that in the program there were 5 speakers. Unfortunately, 2 speakers dropped off. So we have 3 speakers, but they represent 3 different GCC countries, which I think will be very fruitful discussion. And now I will ask probably speakers from our panel. You can see the photos, you can see the names, present themselves and tell a little bit of background, who they are, maybe educational background and what they are doing, and probably projects they are kind of leading or involved. Who would like to start? Ameneiha. Okay.
Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you everyone for coming. My name is Ameneiha Itani, and I've been working with the UAEU for over 4 years. I come from Australia, and I've been working in Australia for most of my career. I've been involved with the e-resources side, the transformative agreement side, the research workflows, and the research systems. So thank you. I hope this meeting and panel discussion will be of benefit for everyone. Thank you.
I'll pass the mic to Jamal because I'm a host. Okay, great.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for having me in this session today. I'm Jamal Salmi. I was head of the Information Studies Department at Sultan Qaboos University for about 6 years, but actually I worked there as an assistant professor for about 20 years. Then resigned for a private reason. Then I moved to University of Nizwa for about now 4 years. I'm as associate professor there and also as a director of the main library at the University of Nizwa, which is one of the biggest private universities in Oman. I used to study in Australia, because now many people from Australia, so I was at Curtin University as my master there. And also the PhD was in New Zealand, also in the knowledge management. And also I am part of the members who are like establishing the Omani Research Repository, so which is our talk today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Milan Vasiljević. I'm a manager of electronic resources and licensing department from Qatar National Library. Okay, sorry. And as a host, I really want to pass the warm welcome to our guests and thanks to Forum and our library for organizing this event. It was really needed. So my main role is coordinating the subscriptions to scholarly publications, and also working closely with open access team and our research team and all of the other departments on building the infrastructure for open science, which will hopefully come sooner rather than later.
So before we go to questions and answers, I would like to put us a little bit into the context. So can you move the slide forward? I did some research on what is happening in the region. I did use SciVal as the source, but at the same time, I decided, okay, let's see how the research is actually happening here in the region. And I did some stats here. You can see that For 5 years, if you look at what was published in 2019 in the countries of the Gulf, the research almost doubled in 2023, and it's valid almost for all countries. So if you can press the next button. I even did the special chart that shows that percentage of production of research in the countries. You probably can see that definitely Saudi leads the way, but it's definitely population, universities that has, but other universities really have big amount of research production. As I said, research is definitely on the rise. So if we can go to the next slide. I put here a quote that actually attributed to Albert Einstein, but there are a lot of other dignitaries that claim it. Be a voice, not an echo. Why? Because the research here in the region, we really want to have a voice. We want to have an impact. We want to be visible. Why it is important? Having research production that goes almost twice in 5 years is important because, as you can see here, it really makes the region stronger. Having strong research in the region addresses unique regional challenges because research very often is done on the context of these countries, not on the context of other countries. It offers new interesting insights in what's happening on the progress in GCC region. And definitely, we will speak about national policies. It informs what kind of policies necessary to introduce in the country. And definitely collaboration. Even today, one of the speakers, Batool, just before us, she said, research, it's not only about publishing. Research, it's about collaboration, it's about co-working, it's about co-creating. So definitely, it's about creating collaboration. So if we can go to the next slide. Here, I just wanted to show you some statistics about the countries in GCC region in comparison with two biggest producers of research. So you can definitely see here Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Saudi, in comparison with United States and China. And China is the biggest producer of research these days. So definitely when we see the numbers, there's no comparison. But at the same time, when we start looking at statistics a little bit more carefully and compare, what does it mean? The statistics, we will see that, for example, field-weighted citation. Countries in our region have much higher numbers than big producers of research in United States and China. And no surprise, Qatar is leading the way, thanks to a lot of open access initiatives. When we look at top 10 journals, we can see that definitely China and US have really high numbers there, but countries in the region, they're not very much behind. So we're quite comparable. And when we look at citation per publication, you will see that our countries here in the region have high numbers than US and China. So everything is seen in comparison. So sometimes having big numbers doesn't mean really big impact, big visibility and notice of the research. And next, what I wanted to say about collaboration. It's really a very interesting trend. When you look at collaborations in US and China, you will see that international collaborations are not that big, but national collaborations are quite high number. In comparison with US and China, countries in the Middle East here in Gulf countries are very strong on international collaborations. And it's actually different from country to country, because if you look, for example, at Qatar and UAE, major collaborations happen with UK and US. Other countries like Oman mostly has collaborations with India, Saudi, Egypt. And Saudi has collaborations with Egypt, India as well. And then a little bit later comes US and UK. It's also regional differences and preferences of researchers as well. Let's go to the next slide. We spoke about open access, closed access. So I decided to run statistics for 5 years as well, just to see what is the production of open access publication within 5 years in different countries and how are they kind of cited. We spoke that there were some presentations during this forum event that said, Well, actually, when you publish in really in Q1 journals, even if it's closed, you still have a lot of citation. Yes, it's true. But looking at the statistics here, you can see that whatever was published in Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, I didn't put Saudi because the numbers are too big. I couldn't run that in the system. You can see that everything that was published in open access is more visible because they receive more citations. And the numbers sometimes twice more than citations that closed publications received. So if you look at the citation per publications, the same thing, and numbers sometimes threefold than in closed publications. And as well, you can see that collaborations for open access publications are much higher than publications which are closed, which tend to be like really within one institution or sometimes within one nation. They don't really extend too much into international ones. Can we go to the next slide? And since we are having formed during Open Access Week, I decided, okay, let's speak a little bit about open access and why does it matter? And many many presentations today really underlined what is the advantage of the open access. But since we're speaking about visibility, I really want to say open access is very important for the visibility of the research, for accessibility, dissemination, and impact. Even two keynote speakers said about impact, how important it's not only to publish, but really, what kind of benefit do you bring to the society? So, as I brought here, it's promote equal access, forces collaborations. Again, I was speaking about the importance of collaboration in the region, increases visibility of research, which means citation counts, which is important for researchers, for institutional reputations and ranking, diverse voices, again, because I can see more and more, even in US journals, publications from China, publications from Africa, publications from Australia, which was not really present much before, and enhances overall impact of scientific work beyond the institution. And the last slide, I just wanted, since we're in Qatar, wanted to give some information about what's happening in Qatar. I know that Milan is here and he's going to present Qatar National Library projects, but I just wanted to say that mostly open access initiatives, open science initiatives are led by Qatar National Library. And you can see that the services that are given here is open access agreements with publishers, like transformative agreements, article processing charges, fund that covers a lot of publications. And here's the statistics. In 2023, there were 1,274 articles supported and big number of authors and 28 institutions. And definitely events and training sessions, even having formed here, it's like really big visibility for the region, big visibility for the research happening here, and a dialogue that happens for us to share knowledge and start some kind of collaborative or some kind of projects that help us to move the whole region in the open science agenda. And Manara, I think we will be mentioning Manara as open repository. Now it's time for me to stop talking and give some word to our invited presenters. So, conversation actually will start probably with more overall picture, speaking about the national picture. So my first question will be actually, I do remember Dr. Hilal in his keynote on the first day said that when we look at the region, the whole MENA region, very often we don't see a lot of national policies. Mostly it's driven by small initiatives from institutions. So my question addressed to all of our speakers will be, are there any specific national policies or programs that support research activities in your country and the discoverability of local research outputs on a global scale? I don't know who would like to start. Okay.
Okay, because I have the mic mistake I made. I will leave the mic for the next question. So for Qatar, we don't have, as far as I know, the national policy on research outputs. I've been looking, there some things are in progress, things are constantly, let's say, cooking. And we, as a Qatar National Library, as a Qatar National Library Consortia, we're trying to do our part. And as you pointed out with Dr. Hilal's presentation, access to content is just one piece of the puzzle. So as an institution that controls this access through a consortia for the whole country, more or less, we are trying to at least make this puzzle, let's say, green, or make it open, not to use the colors of open access. So we think each institution can do a lot, and also to encourage those who don't have the open access fund and or policies and are from the region. We understand a perception of like GCC countries having a lot of money to put into certain initiatives. However, with our transition to open access, we used existing subscription funds. So that's crucial to state, because any library that has a subscription should have some kind of an open access fund that goes with the subscription without investing extra funds. That's the whole idea behind the transformative agreements. And I mean, I don't know if I should say this because the session is recorded, but I will anyhow. We don't have a policy or mandate to do this written, okay? So it's like our moral and ethical and professional obligation to do this. So we are not driven by the policies. What we took like bottom-up approach. We have proved that things are working, and now we're working on a policy. So we have converted existing subscription funds, stopped some of the subscriptions back in the days, 2017, 18 was when we initially started. And it was a challenge, you know, because researchers need access to content to do their research. However, we have managed to navigate those times, and publishers have seen an opportunity to pilot these agreements in a different region than Europe, or even US at the time was still quite closed. And I'll pass the mic. I just want to give you a few more information that we didn't come up with this initiative. So it came through a collaboration. And we're collaborating with Max Planck Digital Library, GCC in UK, California Digital Library, BIBSAM in Norway, so with Justice from Japan. So we are collaborating across the globe, and those collaborations are based on our professional roles. So we have started the discussions, we have aligned the goals, and we have started pushing from our end in this region to make our content more visible. And I think by showing us the slide with a number of open access articles and citations, I think we're on the right track. However, I have to stress, this is just one small piece of the puzzle. I don't think open access will solve all the problems with open science, nor I think that, you know, we need to stick to the current models of transformative agreements. Scholarly publishing is, in my opinion, fundamentally broken system. We can elaborate on that later on if there is time. But open scholarly publications are having higher impact and are more accessible to across the globe, and that's what we aim for. And then in parallel, we work with other institutions on building other pieces of the open science infrastructure. I will stop here because obviously I can probably go forever. I just realized with this topic. So please, so there is no open access, open science policy on a state level. However, we're moving different pieces and hopefully we will get there. My short answer.
Thank you, Milan. I think the UAE in general is very much in the same kind of scenario. We've been looking, we've even have a open access policy framework that we developed, but it's still pending approval from different areas within the university. However, we did piggyback on kind of mandates from the UNESCO, the FAIR approach. So we looked at what was happening generally and tried to adopt that. So in my previous experience with UAEU, in my role there, we had the institutional repository. We had the research information system, PURE. So we had an abundance of technology, all that needed policies. So we were just working on the implementation at the beginning of the stages and working with the policies that we needed as we go along. Only last week we had to update many of the policies, and there was a big push to start working on an open access policy. I know there are some government movements and activities and interest with open access. They are looking at what's happening in the universities in the region, what's happening in our university back then. And it's clearly, I think this is probably the next steps would be a national policy. It's something that will progress to naturally, I hope. That will kind of set the scene, making lives for libraries and institutions more easier, because we tend to keep shifting the goalposts, so to speak, when it comes to these policies at the moment, because they are not really enforced. The scholarship works or the institutional repository we had, we have some journals, we have content. Predominantly, it was developed for the ETDs, electronic thesis and dissertations. And then we had a lot of journals that were also on the system, hosted on the system. The problems we had there, we now are getting an influx. This wasn't around 4 or 5 years ago. The interest, there was no appetite 4 years ago or discussions about open access. Until recently. And the reason being is that many of the university journals, there's a kind of an objective to get these journals indexed in Scopus and indexed in Duaj. So to do that, you need an open access policy. There was a push now even further to actually achieve that. We need to have all the standards and requirements in place so that we could really get to a point where our journals meet the standards for both Duaj and for Scopus, etc. So I think in the long term, universities, in my opinion, my humble opinion, should really work towards independence when it comes to publishing. To achieve that, we need to rely more on libraries, on university press within the universities. They need to work in synergy together to achieve some of those components, and working together, we'll go further with things. And on a national level, I think universities will benefit greatly. If there is a national mandate, there's also more initiative, the motivation to actually get into the space of discussions on consortiums. We don't have that. There's a lack of kind of this collective bargaining power that is missing. And that's really, an area which we really need to address. It'd be nice to be able to bargain on a national level and get more get more value for the money we pay. So I think that kind of sets the scene from what's happening from my perspective. Megan?
Thank you. With regard to Oman, we have can talk about 4 initiatives, and I think that regarding the open access, there are many parties involved to be like a holistic way to work together. So firstly, we have the royal decree. It was in 2012 to establish the National Center for the Statistics and Information. And this center, the main purpose of this center is to provide the national statistics that needed to be for everyone. It is like you have a website. Any researcher within Oman, within outside Oman, can get access to this website and get a formal and also unified statistics about everything available within Omani ministries, institutions, and so on. So this is like kind of resource that can help researchers to create more research based on those trusted resources. Also, we have the form of the Omani Digital Research Repository in 2015. And since then, it was also started to think about how we can organize and also manage to bring all the research or like trusted research in Oman in one unified database. So since then, we started to think about the platform and so on. By 2019, we establish or we run this database. So now we have about 22 institutions involved in this repository. We have over 10,000 journal articles. We have about 7,000 thesis and dissertation available within this as a full text for everyone to get access. Also, we have within, like to create a research within Omani universities, like it's part of any master or PhD student to publish a journal article within his or her thesis and dissertation. So it's part of their graduation to be published. So that's why like we have increased the number of publication based on master and PhD thesis. And also at the same time, also we have increased the number of postgraduate programs within Omani universities. The fourth initiative was also the support and also encouragement to establish new journals, academic journals within Omani universities and also another institutions. So now we have about 35 academic journals available. Some of them are related to main universities. For example, Sultan Qaboos University, they provide about 9 journal articles. Nizwa, they are providing 4 journal articles and so on. By last year also, the Ministry of Higher Education and Innovation, they asked me to create a directory how to establish a new journal to be like a standard directory or guide for all universities, how to create a journal article, the peer review process and so on, and also how to link those journal articles to be within the international indexing parties, for example, Web of Science and Scopus and so on. And this guide was also circulated to all universities in order to get benefit out of this directory.
Thank you. Well, we tried to speak about national policies, and what I saw, there's not really a national policies. What we can see, there are no mandates. There's a push to have it. As Milan said, there's some kind of moral obligation. There's no mandatory things. And Amina said that there's open access framework, but we are trying to push for the policy. And I understand that in all countries, including Oman, there's an infrastructure. So we come again to the level of institution, doing a lot of interesting projects. I wanted to ask, well, my next question will be actually, since there is such a big change in the culture, Amina said that 5 years ago, when we speak about open access, there were some kind of weird looks and people didn't understand what it is. Now people asking how, not why, but how. So I wanted to ask, how do institutions promote open science? What challenges do they face? And what are some best practices to deal with these challenges? We don't necessarily need to start with Amina again. If somebody else would like to. Oh,
Sorry, just like to remember. Yeah, for to promote open access, actually also we need to highlight the idea to the population within the country, especially those who are researchers. And for example, to try to remove any kind of restrictions. Some of them, they think that, for example, once I put my journal article or my master thesis available in a repository, it will be stolen. For example, it will not allow me to publish in future in any kind of peer-reviewed journal articles. So this kind of thinking is really exist. And that's why we need to highlight those issues with those researchers in order to ask them or like encourage them to participate in this kind of open access idea. Also, we noticed that less participation in this, for example, I mean the Omani Digital Repository by different institutions because, for example, they think that uploading their content to be within this national repository, it will be an additional task for them. So that's why also we provided like volunteers from all over Oman, those are graduate students with information studies education, and they know how to catalog, to classify those content. So they are volunteers. Once they receive those content, they can classify it, index it, and so on. So only the universities, they can upload the content, for example, a master thesis, then the rest will be done by another students, volunteer students who give them like little in order to work with this part. So this is allow us also to encourage more institutions to be part of this initiative.
Thank you, Jamal. I can continue on, sorry, on a slightly different note, because as a national library, we don't have our researchers that we support with Open Access Fund. So, and we're quite unique, and that's like usually a point of misunderstanding with the publishers. They say, okay, your researchers will be eligible. And then we say, our researchers is anyone in Qatar at any level, government, even private, who's doing a research with a Qatari affiliation. So that can be a master thesis of a PhD student converted to an article. It can be a stem cell research. It can be any topic. Anyone is eligible. And having this unique, let's say, structure, being small and being so not centralized, but being able to coordinate this through consortia, we are working with publishers to detect all the articles and make them open access. Initially, it was, as you have said, like, what is open access? So we still have to address some of these myths and misconceptions. Open means low quality, open access means lower quality. People associate it with predatory journals, etc., etc. So we are still breaking those misconceptions, but they are much smaller now. So promotion goes usually, it's word of mouth. We have a team who's working hard on standardizing our communication with all the requests that are coming for articles to be supported or funded through our fund. It was all baby steps. First, we created a small fund. Then we converted the subscription money. Then by stopping the subscriptions, we invested money in fully open access publishers. And based on when the researchers who used to publish in open access, even before our fund, who make the research open access, we're seeing benefits of citations, of higher visibility. And also, I would like to remind you that Qatar has several initiatives. One is from Her Highness, which is called Education for All. And we're also guided by those visions. So we want research for all. Research that's conducted and produced in Qatar, we want it to be accessible to everyone free of charge. And then, phrase that's always used, stand on the shoulders of giants. In addition to that, we are pushing our open access data to global initiatives like OpenAPC. We are logging our agreements in ISAC agreement registry, so researchers can come through that direction. Because people come and researchers come to Qatar quite often, are getting jobs or research opportunities, and then they're already aware of availability of funds. And it's also, word of mouth is a big thing, and we're in a position that we have to refuse because we're running out of funds or articles, but that's another topic that we're addressing with publishers. So we don't have issue with promoting open access. And for open science, with the repositories, and again, we're a national library. So we don't have a mandates like universities would have to tie the position of research to the institutional repository, to tie that to a promotion and to tenure. Now, researchers have different incentives. And as long as they are incentivized, you mentioned many times Web of Science or Scopus, to publish in those journals that have high impact factor instead of institutional repository, I don't see the huge uptake of open science in that regard.
Thank you. That's a very broad question. Where do you start? in the case where we're still going through a process of evolution, and I think that's the case not just at UAEU, but at many universities in the region. I think also libraries have an identity crisis when it comes to their involvement in the research process and in the research workflow. And it's sometimes from within and sometimes from at a leadership level. The involvement obviously now is more stronger because of the flourishment of the transformative agreements, open access, the subscriptions to the major databases. So there's heavy investments made through the library. And it's coming to the attention now of upper management, leadership, researchers and academics, because the notion, we've moved a long way from becoming a kind of a book gatekeepers of a library to now managing and helping and assisting researchers and publishing, and everything in between with the systems. So we're developing workflows that weren't there before. We have new workflows. And now we have systems that are dictating certain workflows. Does it fit? Does it not fit? So what's happening now that you're promoting these systems, because automatically they wake up one morning and they see their profiles and the whole portal of, let's say, their research is now emerging on a major world scale, the portal that we have for Pure, for example. Researchers are seeing that their profiles is now visible. They're seeing collaboration. They're seeing all these interesting information about their work. And we were still in the phases of implementation. And within the first 6 months of this going live, there were 50,000 extra hits of visibility. We increased visibility by like overnight almost. Institutional repositories play a larger role than many people think in the place of visibility. We all know Google Scholar is a crawler that goes around trying to crawl, but when you have an institutional repository, indexing is immediate, and increasing visibility through these systems, through metadata, and promoting those aspects, it's become evidence to them. They immediately see the motivation, the incentive behind these systems, and the role that libraries play. So there's a big role for libraries to play, to take on these systems and try to promote their support through these systems and show the value. These systems are there to empower the university. They're there to empower even the people administrating these systems, whether they're librarians, whether they're researchers, whether they're other stakeholders all across the colleges. So it's almost a default marketing plan that happened because it's there, it's visible. The introduction of open access and APCs and transformative agreements also played a big role. So librarians should play play it cleverly, that take advantage of the fact that we're not trend setting. This is already happening in Europe and in America. We need to adopt these systems because we need this visibility. We young universities, we're not the Harvards and we're not the Yales of the world. So we need these systems to help us push forward the visibility. We also need the support of the publishers. And we don't have that luxury of saying that we can go independently and boycott and do this and that. We have to, try to, as much as possible, leverage on what's out there, use these systems. And there will come a time where we do become independent. If we play the game right, if we know what our objectives are, the long range, the long view of things is important here, and also showing the evidence, showing the proof. And for now, these systems empower libraries and they empower researchers at the same time. And unfortunately, it's all about ranking now. And these systems play directly into all of this at play. So this massive ecosystem, we sometimes probably need to pick and choose some of the things that work and don't work. Sometimes we're ready for certain things, sometimes we're not. So creating these opportunities, but at the same time, we need to be ready. And the issues we face here is capabilities. And I know I'm diving into something much wider, but if we don't have capabilities and experts to help with this process of marketing, raising awareness, we would go backwards. It's tremendously important that we focus on the expertise of people who understand the entire workflow and how we can customize then things to the needs of this region, because what we're now getting is one size fits all type of situation, but it doesn't need to be like that. But it will take time, but we will get there. So yeah, I think the crust of this is increasing visibility. We are now able to prove that what we do, our services and the systems and the processes we're going through, yes, it's not perfect. It's not meant to be perfect because we are scaling things to the needs of what we have. So having a one system that works straight from the get-go, that perfect system is going to take time, but it's also going to take a lot of investment in both people and capabilities, not just systems. So yeah, I think, and policies, we need that as well.
No, that's true. Very, very valid points. And it's kind of interesting to say that researchers definitely need incentives to go in certain direction, but I can see how visibility of the research, like even having some repository in Amman, having probably visibility of research done on the national level and having citations, and as you mentioned as well, just being present and even young universities having high rankings thanks to the work that is done by libraries to increase this visibility is very important. And I actually have some kind of anecdotal evidence of the library. One of my colleagues said that they were presenting institutional repository to the faculty, to the researchers. And when they were doing it, the repository had opportunity to show who in real time was downloading the work of those. And when researchers see that, oh, my research is downloaded by somebody in France, in Germany, it really kind of makes them advocate to publish open access, to deposit in national repository, to make it more visible and accessible in different countries of the world. Moving forward, I just wanted to ask, you don't all need to answer if you don't have anything, but we spoke about some of the interesting initiatives that your libraries are doing. Just some kind of punctual question. Can you share an example of successful initiative that has significantly increased the global reach of the research conducted in your institution or in the region?
Yes, so definitely I would highlight at least two. One would be establishing of consortia in early 2016. So this, as Amina said, has increased our bargaining power significantly. Being such a small country in terms of population and the size of research community, but again, as you have seen, we are punching above our weight with research. We have managed to consolidate the funds and then approach the two scholarly publishers and negotiate the deals that we thought would work better for our community. And again, I want to stress to all of our colleagues who are experimenting, there is no such thing as like a risk-free venture. So we didn't know if our approach with open access will be reflected by the researchers' needs. Based on the data we could have seen in Web of Science, Scopus, because they're here, I have to mention them all. And nine dimensions was not existing at the time, sorry. So we looked at the data and we sensed that there is a need, but we had to try something. And through consortia, pushing the transformative agreements, we have managed to at least stop these questions. What is open access? Like how I get on board. Now we get those initiatives more. And then in parallel, there is always, as long as we're talking about the journals and the evaluation as we have now, we will not come to an open science, in my opinion, because journals, first one was published in 17th century. Don't forget, it was used for scientific communication because that was the best way at the time to communicate science. It's 2024, journals, in my opinion, everything I say is my opinion, are obsolete and the new models will emerge. So of course, the we are working in this system that has been established long ago, and we all know how hard it is to change things, but we are working towards that, and having our articles open access is a small step in a system that we think will change at a close point in future. Second thing that was really successful, and it was just launched a year ago with many years in working, was Manara, our national research repository. And we have made it more flexible. So you can upload the presentations from your conferences, you can upload your posters, and we are seeing organic growth in content downloads. And I got the numbers just before the session. 70% of the traffic to Manara is coming from US, 10% from Qatar, and the remaining 20% is distributed across the globe, mostly Europe, and of course, a lot from Asia, but in one digits. So there is only US, and then you have UK at 3%, for example. So as a national library, Consortia and Manara so far are our biggest successes when it comes to open science. Thank you.
As I mentioned, when initiative in Oman, the Omani Digital Repository, also, as I said, this started since 2015, and because it has now a reasonable number of content, we receive also appreciation from different countries. And even I noticed yesterday and the day before, many mention about the Shua, we call it Shua also, the Omani Research Repository. Shua, it means in Arabic, the light or the enlightenment. And I noticed many presenters, they mentioned this repository, which means many people now in the Gulf and also in the Arab states, they know about this repository. Also, we have statistics that shows many researchers downloading those theses, journal articles, and so on, nationally and internationally. Even national, some of them, they, like I got many queries from students, master students, they are asking about some thesis in University of Niswa, or maybe, for example, SQU. I ask them just like direct them to go to the Shua. Please go there and search for everything. So they can download everything, they can get all of them united, and also they can filter the result by institutions. For example, let's say I want to get all the theses from Sultan Qaboos University. So once I search, then I can classify it by the institution so they can do it. But also make it further successful. I remember 2 years ago, I have about 500 printed theses. Those who are like, we're very old, they are not in another copy in soft copy. So I asked them to scan it. So they took all of these 500 theses in the Muscat Center, there in the SQU, and they scan it within 1 month, like precise scanning, and then return it back to us to upload it. So we upload all the theses available, or even the old, like 2000, 2010, all of these, like some of them, they were in printed format. So also we uploaded all of these. So that like the repository support all the institutions, even though they have some printed content, they can scan it and make it available online. So that's why now we have more and more content available within this repository.
Yeah, I think we're kind of similar in different approaches. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we do have ScholarWorks, which is the institutional repository. We have the pure system, and now we've actually entered into the APCs and transformative agreements. This is just scratching the surface. The benefits of especially the transformative agreements allowed us to even raise the profile of what open access is and what open science is. And people and researchers in particular became very interested knowing more and more about how we can get into the APC space. This entailed developing policies, entailed developing workflows. Some of these policies, they were drafted, they're not actually activated in any way, but thinking outside the box as a librarian and as somebody that was involved in sort of developing the ideas and concepts behind the transformative agreement and how it would benefit the library. So the library had to work on a couple of fronts. We weren't just looking at the publishing of APCs alone. The read and publish agreements included other aspects. It was helping us develop collections. In a library where there's huge amounts of subscriptions at stake here, we developed APCs and transformative agreements almost at zero cost to the institution. And we leveraged on our subscriptions. But at the same time, we crafted the agreements in such a way that they were kind of bundled, and it gave us multiple advantages. And it increased our collections in a way that we weren't able to do before. So we leveraged on a number of fronts with the assistance, obviously, of our agents and publishers. So there were heavy negotiations because we had the bargaining power. We have the amount of money to spend already on subscriptions. So we wanted to get more with and leverage on the amount of spending power. Now we got to a point where we implemented, as a result of these APCs, we have over 4,700 journals that are covered under APCs at the moment. And this is only across maybe 7 or 8 publishers. The list will grow larger. So we had to deploy a system very similar to Qatar National Library with, let's say, Chronos Hub, the portal. This gave immediate access to journals that were covered under APCs and reduced the workload for the library, that we didn't have to always direct the researchers where to go. We took it in phases, but the benefits were almost immediate. We had access to analytics. We had access, we almost exhausted most of the APCs that we were given. So yes, getting to a point to craft a system with agreements, you're looking at multiple fronts to get the best that you can get from what's out there and offering the best services and systems and technology to our users. So it's too early for us to see how far we've gone with the kind of the evidence, the analytics, but I think that will probably reveal itself maybe in the years to come, where we will be able to see more analytics and more information data to help with that. So yeah, I hope that answers some of the questions. So it's a different tact. Thank you.
That's great. Different institution, different kind of challenges, but very interesting success stories. And I'm conscious of time. I know that I would like to leave at least some minutes for questions, but maybe last question, even though I have a lot, but since we are in very unique environment and it's a region with its own traditions, with its own way of conducting research, I wanted to ask a very brief question. When it comes to gaining international prominence, are there any particular obstacles that researchers in the Gulf encounter compared to their counterparts elsewhere? So if you kind of pretty briefly describe it, and then we'll pass to the audience the microphone to ask questions.
I think, for example, one of these is we created by ourselves how we look to our outcome in Arabic. For example, universities, because I used to be as an academic, and I also apply for the promotion. You know that, for example, the academics, they have to apply for a promotion. One of the main criteria to promote any academic stuff is their publication. And mainly they focus on the English publications rather than Arabic publication. So they look for the Arabic publication as really less, or sometimes they do not look for it, just for specific specialization. So unfortunately, this is like how we look to ourselves. And actually sometimes, like to be like frank in this, some of the Arabic journals still not that high quality in terms of like peer-reviewed process. I remember some of the colleagues, they say that we submit some of the manuscripts, within a week we got the acceptance to publish. So it's what kind of peer-reviewed publication in this academic. They said we are academic journals, but actually, once you see how they practice, they are actually not doing the official or the practical academic review. So that's why some of the people in those committees, they knows about the situation, but they try to generalize it. Like it's actually not to generalize the concept for those little Arabic journals that who practice in this way. We have some of the Arabic journals, they are really strong. The paper was presented before this afternoon. They call it مجلة العربية مجلة كلية الشريعة والدراسات الإسلامية. It is in the Web of Science, and it is like since 2018. And they are really in Arabic, in the Islamic specialization, but they got that accreditation in that location in Q1, I think. So like we can go ahead like with those kind of levels. So the first one is how we look to the Arabic content in this concept about how we can create our content to be available online. So that's why researchers, they tend to publish in English rather than Arabic. For example, for me, I can write it both in Arabic and English, but I prefer to publish in English because of the academic promotion, rather than like it's my own language and it's better to publish in my own language, very easy for me and so on. But because of these academic promotions, I tend to publish in English. So I think one of the reasons in this, nowadays, I think this idea has changed. We have the RC. Yesterday, they announced a new report for 2024, and this morning I was reading their report. They evaluated about 850,000 Arabic research, like the whole countries in Arab world, and also they evaluated about 5,000 academic journals. So it seems like we have a lot of Arabic research available, and ARCIP, which is, I think, they call it Arabic Citation and Impact Factor, which is now start to be very known in Arabic world. They are trying also to promote Arabic research to be also evaluated, and also they evaluate those journals according to international criteria. So also they got many journal articles to be credited within this, and also they announced the winning journals within Arab world, the countries, and so on. So anyone who wants to read this report, I think it's available. I can send you the link. You can read all the criteria they have moved through this evaluation process.
So yeah, I'll jump on Jamal's comment, and I'm actually really glad that you have brought this up because for us also visibility and standardization of Arabic research is a must to make research conducted in the region more visible. I'm not only referring to social sciences and humanities where it has a certain level of visibility, but also, as you have said, if you're fluent in both and you're feeling more comfortable in writing in your own mother tongue, why not? And then have a proper evaluation of that research, regardless of a discipline. So I think it's same. So we are trying to help and promote research done in Arabic. And also what we are trying to do as well is work with colleagues from the region to pass our knowledge on consortia, on transformative agreements. So we're completely open for any kind of collaboration. Regardless of political situations between the countries, we were always working with our colleagues in the countries trying to push for a scientific agenda. And I stress here that we will continue to do so.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely exists issues with visibility for Arabic content. It's, all know, very familiar with those challenges and the challenges of discovery of Arabic content and the poor representation of Arabic content on the world scale discovery systems. The discovery systems are a problem within itself. We need to address that. And I do know there are some initiatives and maybe some technology advances in that space. I mean, China have done it very successfully and increased their visibility immensely. So why can't we? I think there just needs to be more consolidated efforts with partnerships with other universities, think tanks, even people that can actually develop some technologies that will allow well, we have AI now, and that is going to maybe change the whole landscape when it comes to translations and visibility and discoverability of content. There's definitely a digital divide, and it's getting bigger and bigger now with open access. It hasn't really narrowed that divide. There's a need to have our content out there to become more visible. There's also a need for maybe universities to begin with looking at, metadata standards. There are universities where they have a whole metadata strategy. We need to have something like that, maybe on a national level, not just at a university level, because that is the crux sometimes of the problems with discoverability, is the lack of maybe standards that people adhere to when it comes to metadata, especially with publishing in the Arab world. There are no standards. So it becomes very difficult when these things try to kind of be read through systems. So there needs to be maybe a national push towards improving that aspect. And there's an opportunity. We're all here, and maybe this group will grow larger in the future to discuss these things in more depth as to where we are in comparison. Why is the content of Arabic content very poorly represented everywhere? Not just internally in universities. It's not enough that we take internal initiative, university by university. This should be a consolidated effort. And hopefully we'll get there.
Well, thank you so much. I totally agree with you that unfortunately the problem of promotion sometimes require people to publish in English, even though only 5% of the population in the world are native English speakers and only 13% speak English. We still kind of have great push to publish in English. And even as yesterday I've learned, even in Scopus, only 29 Arabic journals are indexed. So if people want to publish in Arabic, it's really difficult in order to get really promotion and notice. So I hope it will change and technology will help us with this. Maybe it will be a conversation for the next forum, 2025. Unfortunately, we went out of the time. This is the advantage of having great speakers. So we are carried away. I'm really sorry we don't have time for questions. We need to have closing ceremony. But what I'm inviting you to do, the speakers are still here. So after the closing ceremony, if you have some questions to one particular person or all of them, please stay and ask these persons kind of one-on-one. Okay. And I think that organizers should be here to. Okay, I just wanted to say thank you very much for being here. Some insights that I've learned here is actually some interesting out-of-the-box look and trying to do initiatives like having consortia that helps you to leverage things, having some institutional repositories that become national-wide, not just institutional-based, looking how you can leverage your expertise and having your subscriptions as a library in order to have APC coverage, transformative agreements. And what is interesting, we're not small ecosystem here in the Gulf. We're not pioneers in this, in open access and open science. It's actually great that all of us are becoming part of a big ecosystem where we can learn what worked, what didn't work. We can get some expertise from people, understand how we can move forward without making a lot of mistakes. Thank you very much for the attention. And I'll pass the mic to our organizers for the closing ceremony. Thanks a lot.